Hello, everyone.
Hello, hello.
I think everyone can hear us. So, hi, everyone. I have a special interview today with Faye, Doney, the traveler nomad extraordinaire. She's on Twitter. How do we get to you on Twitter?
So my Twitter handle is at Doney. It's Doney. Tisdoney. And you can reach out to me anytime. I try to get back to most people.
So she is doing a special travel extraordinary trip to Dallas, Texas, through Dallas to go visit one of our awesome Yang Gang people in Palestine. I think we can tell. It's a small town. You could probably find her if you went to Palestine, Texas. But she's on her way through, and she stopped in to see me. So we can't, let this opportunity go. We have to interview her on my channel and see what she's about. So let's see. There was this thing I heard that you're a nomad. So why don't you tell me about that? What's that about?
Yeah, so I've been fully nomadic for almost 2 years, which means I've just been traveling the US. And so I live in different situations. So maybe I sleep in my truck, or I stay on someone's couch, or maybe they give up their bed sometimes. But then there's also, I was tent camping for a little bit. I don't know, as much as I can to experience different living situations, because I'm also doing sort of investigation as I go, because I think it's important.
What are you investigating?
The problems in our country, so I can help heal the solutions at the source, because that's like, you don't know what the problem is if you're not physically in it sometimes. I think that's a big problem. If we have people making all these bills, and they or whatever, maybe they've created a women's shelter and they've never stayed in it, it could be the absolute worst thing possible, right? And yet they think they're doing a good job. And some women's shelters are not great.
I think I will try to see if I can get this a little bit closer.
Right.
Of course, that's gonna happen if I do, but that's all right. Let's try this. Hi, I wanted to be really close so people could really see me. I just feel like we're too far away, maybe. And hey, this is all an experiment, people. So don't okay.
In live filming or in person filming.
So lots of adventures is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
And what are the main problems that you're running into? I guess based on what you're saying. Like everybody needs UBI, people.
Yes, I agree. So problems that I come across, it's kind of hard to be a single woman traveling.
Oh yeah, that's like the number one don't do type of thing, right? Don't be a single woman traveling.
Yeah, how dare I want to do anything autonomously?
It's like that rock song, No Doubt song. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I don't think off the top of my head I know which song you're talking about, but that's okay.
Yeah, I don't have the words right now, but we'll talk about that later. So yeah, single white female going through the United States by yourself. That's like no, but you're not scared. You're not scarred. You run into plenty of people. You know how to use self-awareness and.
I mean, I've gotten myself into situations that are amazing, but it is dangerous, definitely. But I have tools in my tool belt that I kind of pull out when I'm in a situation, and I try to listen to my gut.
Are you like this? That is a knife. This is a knife. Is that you're talking about here?
Actually, I try to send out belonging cues to people, so that even if we might not automatically resonate, but it's more like I'm here to be your friend kind of approach. Think of a dog. It might get aggressive, and furl up, and that's kind of like having maybe a knife on you or something, and you're just prepared for danger, right? But if you're a dog that comes up welcoming, you can it's just fun and play, and you're engaging the other person. But you can feel your gut when you're just like, ooh, maybe I do need to like, or because like sometimes people will be very aggressively flirtatious, if you will, and it's like uncomfortable or whatever it be. And when I have those situations, I just have to like set boundaries and be like, thank you for your compliment, but please keep them to yourself if it's getting to a certain point. But conversation and language really goes a long way there.
Okay. So you started out though on this life before the gang.
Mm-hmm.
So take me back right before you found out about Andrew Yang. What was your life kind of like, and then what happened, like that moment? You gotta tell me about the moment of the Andrew Yang moment.
Oh man. So,
do you remember back that far?
Yeah, no, okay, so I gave up the apartment December 31st, 2018. It was like New Year's, and we saw fireworks. It was like a celebration, right? It was like everyone else is celebrating for me. Well, I was going with a partner actually, and so we went on this road trip, and it was pretty cool because we had packed up the apartment. I was living near Portland, Oregon. It was Gresham technically, and anyway.
Go ahead, Anna. Just let's see if anybody comments.
Yeah, we will take comments. But yeah, so essentially, we packed up everything. We had a trailer that we had actually built, and we had a Prius, and we had built the trailer, and we hooked it on there, and we just went, right? Can't remember our first.
Free as a bird.
Yeah.
Did you have a plan? You were going somewhere specific, or just?
So I had what I called my travel journal, and essentially it was a journal when I drove for Lyft for 6 months. I just asked my passengers, I'm like, hey, I'm going to be fully nomadic for up to 2 years. Is there any place around the U.S. that you would like me to see? Can you write it in my book? And they would. I had 150 pages full. But the problem with that is it was so randomized that I actually had to put it into a Excel document. And even that's not fully done yet. So, but yeah, it was just across stuff.
So you still have some places to go from that.
Yeah,
tons of places.
You want to hear the most depressing part?
Yes, tell me.
With COVID and this pandemic,
COVID sucks.
I bet you about 50% of those places are closed down.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
permanently.
Permanently, yeah. And some of them had already started closing down before I actually I Google it and I'm like, oh, I can't go to the Flintstones park or whatever it was. I don't know what it was. But anyway, so now I can't do any of that.
It does feel like this thing is kind of like a war where your city gets bombed, and then after the bombing stops, you're gonna be like, okay, what survived? What's still here, or a fire or whatever.
That's an interesting way to put it, but you're right.
We're gonna be like, what old people survived, what what buildings, businesses,
Yeah, it's sad. But when I had the journal, I was like, I will have the opportunity to stand where they stood, see what they saw, smell what they smelled, and I could just enter someone else's experience that they wanted to share with me, and I was really excited about that. But at the time, I was also a professional cuddler, and so.
Whoa! Go back. You don't just drop that. Hey, I was a professional cuddler. What? You're a professional cuddler?
Yeah. So essentially, people would pay me to cuddle them, and it was a great bonding experience to help just bring joy back to people's lives. Yeah. And sometimes it's just conversation.
That is definitely one of those things where you hear and you're like, what? That's a job? That's a career?
The reason
before pandemic, obviously.
Yeah. I haven't been a cuddler for at least a half a year. No, way longer than that. Maybe a year and a half.
Yeah.
But no, a year. It's been a year. It doesn't matter.
Before the gang?
Before the gang,
okay.
For sure. Because it just got so dangerous with all the sex trafficking and prostitution, and the messages were being very mixed of what cuddling even meant, and
you wanted to be strictly platonic.
Everything, please, platonic, but people don't always listen to your boundaries, or they push it, or stuff happens, right? And I eventually had to go to therapy because it was that bad.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So it wasn't net positive at the end. It was a good experience, but not net positive.
I met so many incredible people. I cuddled in 11 states, and it was quite the experience. But then I started noticing trends with different ethnicities, actually, because their culture teaches you a little different about how to treat women. And for an example is people from India consistently violated my boundaries. And I wasn't trying to be racist or anything, but it was almost too triggering to cuddle with anyone who was after a while, because how many of them had actually violated my boundaries, and to them they wouldn't even know,
Right.
So I had to just say no to certain types of people, and I felt bad about that because I'm you deserve love and affection and just intimacy in a capacity that is platonic. But unfortunately, I can't be that person for you just because of my own personal experiences that I don't want to re-trigger, and it would not be a very, it would feel forced for me, and I wanted to always feel authentic when I was around these people.
We'll go back to the time we kind of moved on. So right before you found out about the game, what was happening?
Okay.
And how did you find out?
So while we were on the road trip, we actually listened to the War on Normal People book that Andrew Yang wrote. And
so just randomly, do you remember what happened? You were.
Well, because my partner was very yang before
okay.
I was, and he had introduced me to videos and stuff, but I never solidly was Andrew Yang,
So you were already had heard about him, but it just didn't really penetrate, or you weren't serious about it.
Yeah, you can put it that way. But when that book happened, I was everything makes sense. The problems that are happening right now, and just it was just I finally had hope for the future.
That's funny because I think he wrote the book in 2018, but he was running since 2017. So you probably heard the book right when it came out, is what I'm gathering. Is that?
It was probably March or April.
Anyway, you listened to the book on this on this road trip. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
And eventually my relationship dissolved, and the trailer had the axle broke. Actually,
did he turn into a robot?
He did not turn into a robot.
Sure.
But yeah, so we decided to part ways. And actually, one of my cuddle clients donated a truck to me, flew me out to North Carolina because I was in Portland, and they gave it to me. And then as I was driving,
that's some cuddle connection right there.
right? It was pretty incredible. Well, they already wanted to donate it. It was a free truck. It's a free truck. It's not great quality, right? But as I started coming back from North Carolina back to Portland, I got a cover for the back of my truck, and I randomly met somebody who helped me spray paint it because I saw their spray painted car. I was oh, I like what you did, and I thought I was picking on them for their paint job. I was no, I want to paint my truck. They're we could do it today. Sure. So I actually hung out with them for a few days. We parted ways, and I didn't actually finish painting my truck because they made me feel uncomfortable. But eventually, now it's got
So you just got the hood painted?
The hood was very recently painted.
Oh,
Because the whole truck is red with gold sparkles, and it's got a black fender and stuff. I made curtains. I don't know. I wanted to customize my truck and give me something to do and something that felt like a safe space while I'm traveling,
Yes, it's very creative. Let's take a second and just do a sound check real quick, because we don't have any chat people to tell us, can you hear us? I assume this is volume,
Here,
right?
I got it, yeah.
Just
Oh, not screenshot. It's working.
okay. Perfect. Sound check. Now she has to stop it.
There you go. Hi, Ariel, by the way. Hi.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's nice to see you in Texas.
Awesome. So, intro song. So, you got your truck from somebody in North. So you flew there. You got your truck, and you just continued to like travel around, like back east for a while, and then moved yourself to California eventually, or just followed the Yang Gang, or.
Yeah, so I actually went across the U.S. a couple times. I went like back to Portland, back to North Carolina, and then like been up and down the coast of the West Coast. And eventually I was like, you know what? I want to live in a tent in San Diego because it's warmer weather. It's like somebody said it was like quality to like live there.
You're the first woman ever that has told me they wanted to live in a tent.
Well, I don't want to pay rent.
Anywhere.
I've been trying to avoid paying rent. And I've been very successful at it. And so to me, it doesn't matter. I grew up camping, all the time with my family. So for me, it's like, oh, I get to be connected with nature. I can hear the birds when I wake up, maybe watch a lizard crawl. Yeah. I only saw one rattlesnake and one scorpion, okay, guys? At my tent.
Scorpions in California? Northern California?
Southern, no, it's in Southern.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a baby one, too.
Well, those are the most dangerous. Same, you told me the rattlesnake was a baby one, too. The most dangerous.
Right, yeah.
Ran into the most dangerous scorpions and snakes. Good job.
Yeah, well, I think actually you can put a vibe into a world that animals can pick up, and
They're attracted to you.
Animals love me, like
Okay.
even
snakes.
Well, I don't know. I picked up a snake one time when I was a kid, and I was like, "Hey, Mom, look at this cool snake I found!" And then it started giving birth to live snakes in my hand. I didn't know they gave birth to live snakes. I thought they were all eggs, and so then we had to like catch baby snakes and take them outside.
Wow.
But yeah, I don't know. I've had it's not the first time animals gave birth on me either. Actually, kittens have been born. Yeah, I don't know. Wild animals walk up to me.
All right.
I'm just Snow White. No, but it's if a polar bear can play with with a snow dog and the polar bear is hungry, why is that possible? It's body language. It's the energy you send out into the world. Maybe you just tilt your head, and animals can understand that. That's curiosity, right? It's body language. So if you give belonging cues to animals, even, and animals love to be talked to. They're like, oh, this little thing is making weird noises at me.
So you're back.
I know, we'll eventually get to the story.
So your relationship has dissolved. You get this new truck, start traveling. What's the first Yang Gang type of activity did you?
Well, we gotta talk about San Diego.
Okay.
Because the moment I got to San Diego, so much happened. So within the first week, I met someone who was running for mayor and someone who was running for city council. But it started with there was this bonfire that was going to happen to raise money for Yang. And I was like, I would like to help with something. Maybe I can pick up trash or whatever. I don't know. Maybe just exposure for Yang. And I love picking up trash. I was like, man, homeless people should pick up trash. Shoot, I'm kind of homeless. So I started picking up trash. And so, I say we're nomadic because it's a little more enriching of a term versus the image that conjures when you're homeless. Yeah. The world is my home. What are you talking about?
But you literally have no place of residence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But when I was in San Diego, so I had tried a couple different scenarios for finding somewhere to sleep because I slept awkwardly in my truck in the front of it because I had too much stuff in the back, and I couldn't find any place to tent camp that was free, right? That was legal as well. And I was like, man, I don't have any money. I couldn't get a storage unit or anything. And so I went online to I used a platform to meet up with somebody, and they made me uncomfortable as well. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't feel this uncomfortable. So I started. I wanted to find a women's shelter, Well, when I had done the garbage pickup, it was when I met the guy running for city council, Johnny Lee Dang, and
Did
he.
Did he win? Or?
No, neither of them. Neither of them.
Dang.
Yeah.
Dang. Okay.
Yeah.
Go on.
But that's okay. We developed a friendship, and so Johnny introduced me into Rich Ryle. Rich Ryle was the one running for mayor, and anyway, so Rich was like, "Oh, you want to get into a women's shelter?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, how about I pop down there with you?" And you know, he wanted to have the experience of it. I was like, we were there for 2 hours. He sat with me for 2 hours trying to get housing, and I was like, this guy, because but actually there was like some sketchy stuff going on with that particular building. That like, it was I forget what they call it, navigation center, but it was an indoor skydiving building that had been claimed as if it was a business building, which is not right. You're not supposed to do that. Anyway,
Sure.
so he actually has been doing investigation into certain buildings in San Diego. And this is one of the buildings that came up super sketchy. And so
they have a women's shelter in a sketchy building?
no. The navigation center brings you to a women's shelter.
Oh, okay.
Right. But the navigation center was not actually a business center. And like they were trying to convert it to one. But it's not. It was made for indoor skydiving, and so that's a single-purpose building. But anyway, I finally get this into a women's shelter, and like you have to be like, you can't leave. You get there at 6 p.m. or 5 p.m. whatever it was, and you can't leave for the rest of the night, right? And then you gotta wake up, get up, ready, and then spend the day wandering and doing whatever. And so there was a bonfire that was coming up, and I was like, I really want to go to that. But you have to get like special permission just to be, otherwise you lose your bed, right? And this bonfire is at night, and I was like, what do I do? And so Rich actually wrote me a permission slip, if you will, you know, on letterhead and everything, that, oh yeah, she can go to this bonfire thing for Andrew Yang, right? And it was there that I met this person that was Yang Gang, and I was telling them about just my life a little bit, and we started hanging out, and they actually ended up giving me 3 installments of the freedom dividend out of their own pocket. And so, you know, for 3 months I had $1,000, and it really impacted me. But they also gave me an offer to go help in Iowa for Yang Week, right?
Wow.
And they would fly me out there. I was like, yes. So that was my introduction. Like I had to have a special permission slip to even go to this thing, which led to getting all that money and led to going and helping on the Yang campaign. And then I went from Iowa to
How long were you in Iowa?
like a month.
A month?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I went to Vegas to help there. And then
that was like early on into the campaign, right?
So this was
Sounds like it.
January.
Oh, it's pretty early.
Yeah, all of January, and then.
I mean, I just found out about Yang in January.
Oh.
2019, I believe. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was January of this year, so.
Of 2020? No, not this year, because that was.
2020. The Gang Week was this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So. But.
Or Yang Month, but.
But you found out about them in 2019.
Yeah.
Okay, but you were okay. I'm trying to fit it together.
Yeah.
So you had been doing stuff in 2019,
Mhm.
but you went to this thing in like the end of 2018.
2019. So think of it like it says 2018, but it was the very last day of the year, right? So it sounds like I was traveling a lot longer. That was not necessarily intentional, but like I like the feel of that. I'm like, oh, it sounds a lot longer. But no. So the whole first year I was traveling. Half of that year was with a partner. The other half
because
was
I met you in 2019 before Yang Week and all that kind of stuff. That was I know I did. not 2000, not 20.
The only way we could have met is if you were in Portland, Oregon. I did see him do a thing in Portland. He did do.
I was in Portland.
Well,
Oregon.
yeah, because you were following him.
But I don't know. I saw you.
I don't. Yeah. But he did a thing.
I saw you in California, and I'm trying to think what event that was. Was it the LA event? I don't
think I met you before. I think I met you in Vegas.
Was it Vegas that we met?
I think I met you in Vegas.
Oh yeah, it was Vegas. Sorry.
Yeah. No worries. And that was in February.
Yeah.
We have not known each other that long.
Was it in February? Because I thought it was before then. No? You're probably okay.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep track, people. Okay, so you have my issues. You'd have a bad memory too. But anyway, okay, yeah.
Yeah. So.
You're right. So it was more recent than I thought.
Yeah.
So okay.
No worries.
Go on.
Yeah, so by cleaning up garbage, it really just unraveled my life in such beautiful ways. Because if I didn't meet Johnny, I wouldn't have met Rich. I wouldn't have met the person who donated money to me, and it just became this beautiful cascading effect. But when I got that money, I actually helped some of the women in the women's shelter, and I actually created a thank you video to Andrew Yang, and he retweeted it, got 30,000 views. And people were introduced to me, and it's interesting because I was able to tell that story about how I spent the money, and it actually inspired other people to give as well. So it became this pay it forward, and just it's beautiful when people see what you do for the world. It actually kind of inspires them to do something and take action. And so that's what happened. I don't know. I only recently found out that I had inspired someone to actually donate to somebody else. I was like, that's awesome.
So now listening to your story, it sounds like you kind of really got on the gang, whatever, more to the end of the campaign.
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was.
That's what I was confused about. I was I was thinking that you were early adopter kind of thing.
I had known about him for a long time.
Okay.
But I had not been active.
Right.
Until right at the very end.
Okay.
So that's probably where the confusion is, because December of last year is when I really that's when all this was happening with the women's shelter and everything else. But yeah, and then
I got it now.
You got it.
I'm on the same page.
But it's been such a crazy adventure because once Yang dropped out, I didn't stop. Right. Really just. I mean, he activated so many people.
And there's more post campaign than anybody that I know.
Yeah. There's always a death and rebirth, and I feel like I was right there during that phase of death and rebirth, and I'm just helping people gain extra momentum now that because you get sad when that happens.
Yeah, I mean, people were it's over, they're so upset, and I was well, it's a new phase. I mean, obviously, it would have been perfect if he would have been president, because he would have been 42 and the 42nd president or something like that, and that would have been awesome, but,
I don't think we have the foundation laid for Andrew Yang to be president yet.
Yeah.
And
that's what I think too. We need more time.
Needed the time. We were scrambling. Nobody knew what they were doing. They were just holy crap, we really need Andrew Yang. And we were all rushing, but we didn't know what we were doing because none of us paid attention to politics, right? And so then the people who knew what they were doing almost were just kind of being harsh about the people who didn't know what they were doing. We're we're doing our best job.
Yeah.
And
Trump, they always make a correlation to Trump, but he had his own TV show, and there was a lot of Americans that probably didn't know him, but there was enough that knew him, that him becoming president was already had the momentum, So it's not, you can't really equate Andrew Yang to Trump.
Well,
in that way, because if Andrew Yang was more well known, he came out of obscurity, right?
It's all about popularity, unfortunately, and it's actually just the way our brain. It's a fallacy. It's whatever you feel about this one person, that's what you project onto this thing. They do it in marketing all the time, you know.
Yeah, like if you see somebody more, you get more familiar with them, whether they're
Yeah.
yeah,
And then
they
you
could
project
be-
that onto whatever is like.
It's like that Como thing, like Andrew Como in New York was so popular just because he kept showing up on the TV, and like the New York response was probably not the best, but people are like, oh, I want him to be president, and he's like, well, he didn't do that great a job, but he was on TV all the time, and that was enough.
Yeah.
That's kind of it.
But so that's why identity politics is such a thing. But like realistically, what to me this whole presidential election thing, it's just a popularity contest. It's not proof that you can do anything. It's not showing your ability to make the place a better place. It's look at me, give me attention because I want to win, right?
Yeah.
And how can I sway you to want to vote for me? Instead of going out and picking up garbage, instead of going out and working in community centers, instead of doing the work, but there's no incentive to actually do the work because it's not related. There's no actual correlation there.
Yeah.
So it
For sure.
doesn't work.
And that's the thing, like, I noticed during the campaign, like, Andrew had the best answers, and people would ask them, like, really serious questions, like, what are you going to do for, appropriation, reparations, yeah. What are you going to do for reparations? And he'd come up with a great answer, and he'd be asked, like, really hard ones, like that in Nevada, they have an issue with nuclear waste, and they're like, what are you going to do about nuclear waste? And he would have a great answer. And then I realized that it didn't matter who had good answers, because like the politicians that did even better didn't have a good answer. They had like a general, like placating answer, and they would generally would do better. So
what I wish we had, if it was up to me, would be to have more like department heads and focusing on different groups that are specialized in, maybe this group is just going to work on a project. Okay, I'm done with all these issues. What do we have to do to make this work? And just get a team together, hyper focus on it,
well,
get
that's
experts.
what the president is supposed to do, is get
Exactly.
experts and a team together, and not do really anything except organize people.
The problem with that, though, is it's not effective.
Yeah.
If it was effective, I'd be all for it, but I don't think it's effective. Our country is very big proof of that, right? And so, like, but then people can, like, if you just hyper focus on that, then people can gravitate towards ideas instead of people, right? We need to gravitate more towards ideas and stop talking about people. Nobody's innocent. We've all done something wrong. Like, what is this obsession with purity? We've all hurt somebody's feelings. Maybe we had a bad day, when we snapped at somebody, and then now they think we're an absolute terrible person, and now they're projecting that out to the world to hear this person's terrible,
Well, there's different, aspects.
There's different levels,
yeah,
for sure.
levels, fine. Yeah, my brain, is it working? Okay, yeah, different levels, and, that's the thing, like, down ballot candidates, I've heard, like, being accused of really stupid, silly stuff compared to, like, other people who, like, just like Kamala Harris and some of the issues that she really had, and get,
I have some
questioned
thoughts
over
about
that.
Kamala Harris. Rich Ryle, the guy who helped me with the women's shelter, he's been doing an investigation for 10 years on corruption in San Diego. And he's uncovered a lot of stuff because he was ground level. He was witnessing it. He saw some really sketchy stuff happen. And like between the La Mesa police and her, actually, he's like, she's involved with like drug-related cover-up or something like that. Like, don't quote me on that. But like, there's red flags.
Yeah.
and he's been seeing it at the ground level. And I was like, is this what you're talking about? And I pulled up an article because he actually like made sure that the Attorney General is 100% aware of everything. Yet there's no action, and there has been no action for a while, and he had to get a signature, that proof that this person received the letter, because he's been ignored at some levels.
Her record is really bad, and she marks the boxes, and that's it, and everything else is just swept aside because she marks certain boxes.
I don't feel very safe with her being in charge of her country.
Yeah.
But that's my own opinion. Have I ever met her? No. Have I personally investigated her? No. But this person who I do trust has been investigating for 10 years. And so it will make me feel like, okay.
And tonight is the vice presidential debate, so go ahead and pitch that.
Yeah, there you go. Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, people like her again because she presents herself well on TV, and that's the litmus test for most people.
I mean, she could be a wonderful person. I really don't know. But
her record is problematic.
Yes.
Is the issue, right?
Mm-hmm. And so it's like, what are we actually using as criteria, and is it the right criteria?
Yeah, I'd rather have Tulsi Gabbard as the vice president, but that's not gonna happen. And
You mean not Andrew Yang?
Yeah, no,
I want him as president.
I think people would have loved the Andrew Yang Tulsi ticket. That would have been the dream right there.
I haven't investigated too much into Tulsi, if I'm really gonna
The only
honest.
problem is that she fell for a report about voter tampering by a news organization that's not credible at all. And recently, Veritas, and Veritas, they've already fact checked that it's bull. But she was tweeting about it, how we need to pass a law. So that happened recently with Tulsi. I'm disappointed, but overall, she's a pretty good person as far as her record goes. So.
Yeah. So I mean, it really just feels like we've got a mob or a gang running our country with
And
this.
not the Yang Gang.
Not the Yang Gang. It's the opposite gang, right? It's just, while I'm traveling, I'm meeting people on the streets, and what's happening is I have engaging conversations with them, but maybe they're doing drugs, but why are they doing drugs? It's a coping mechanism. Why are you coping, right? That's okay. If you're doing a lot of drugs, what is it that you're holding on to? And so I have a good way of getting people to open up to me. I got lots of practice as a cuddle buddy. But essentially, the people that are on the streets and homeless have been whistleblowers. They have been people who their partners stole all their stuff because they justified it for some reason. Maybe oh, you cheated on me, I'm gonna take everything you own now, right? It's revenge. I don't know, stupid. But then other people I've met, let's see, they were sex trafficked and or sexually abused by their family members or people in their community networks. These are people with extreme trauma.
Right.
And it's just very, very prevalent. And but see,
And we're doing nothing to help them or heal them or anything.
we shame them for being in that situation.
Right.
It's not gonna help solve the problem. You can't heal it by shaming somebody. It's just never gonna work. It doesn't work. It's been proven not to work, but no, we think that's the right action. Because, by then they've been shamed and exiled, if you will. And then if you don't have a community network, what are you going to do? You're going to have to survive somehow still. You still need food. You still need this and that. So maybe start stealing, right? But then maybe you're so emotional that you've had to steal maybe, and then you go to a coping mechanism, and now you're just deep in drugs, right? And so it's a vicious cycle when really we need to be I hear you. You're in pain. Let me help. Or do you need help, right? Actually, it needs to be more of a question, because that's a gate. Maybe they don't want help.
Well, what struck me how Andrew talked about it is usually like if you want to help somebody, you have to say, okay, well, what governmental resources are available for me to help these people? And then it takes a lot of effort and research to find those resources, whether it's food stamps or money or whatever, and get them, to qualify for it and everything. So if they just had $1,000 a month, it would be a lot easier to say, well, I know you have at least this. What can we do with it to get you back up and going?
The other thing about being a nomad and injecting myself into people's lives like I do, it's not like vicious, whatever, but like, hey, can I help clean something? Is that a thing I can do for you? I just met someone from the Yang Gang Roundtable podcast, and I met their partner, right? And their partner has disabilities and, is emotional with depression and a decent amount of trauma, right? And so she was talking about how she wishes her studio was clean. I was like, I would love to offer to clean that for you. So that's mental bandwidth that was being spent on just like her shaming herself that it wasn't clean, right? Or whatever was happening there. And I was like, no, let me get in there and I'll do something for you. And when you do something like that, it's actually just warming the other person's heart, right? You're adding value to their life, you're investing in them. But that's pro bono work. If everybody can't afford these kind of services, if you can't hire a cleaning lady because you're so broke, you're going to consistently have that weighing feeling on you, especially if you have physical disabilities that cause you so much pain you don't want to do it. So other times maybe they just need someone to talk to. They're like, I can't afford therapy, and here I am. I'm like, well, let's talk. If you just need an ear. And so by doing pro bono work, if you will, I've been able to add value to a lot of people's lives. And
pro bono is where you're expecting to get paid later. Right? Is it really
No.
volunteer?
Oh, for me, when I use the word pro bono, I think just free. I guess.
Pro bono is free, but you're expecting to get paid later.
Oh, well, then I'm using the
That's
term
what
wrong.
the lawyers do, pro bono, meaning I'm gonna work free, but when we settle the case, I'm gonna take 20% or whatever. So that's volunteer.
Yes,
what
I'm
you're
volunteering, but
Yes.
maybe that's better. I volunteer to improve the quality of life for them, and for me, that just gives me a good, happy feeling, right? But actually, karma
doing.
comes
So
back
that
to
could be
me.
your payoff later.
Yeah, karma does pay me, and I have seen it over and over again. I have sometimes when I need to have money so I can travel to go see my friend, money comes my way because they care about me and they see the work I'm doing, and so they don't necessarily have the ability or resources to physically be there and help out, but I can show up and do the work for them, and they're like, well, thank you, let me help you out, because they can't do it themselves, but that's the resource they have to give. Other times, I carry things that I give away to people. I got at thrift stores where people gift me things, and so I'm like, oh, would you like this? I carried a bunch of female robes, okay, because I think every woman should be feel powerful and sexy, and so but they never buy themselves a pretty robe,
Okay.
And so I would gift these to women that I would meet, and I'm like, do you want a robe? Because they see the one I normally wear, and they're like, yeah, sure, I'd love that, and so I'm able to do that. But when I do that, sometimes they give me something in return, right? And so it's this beautiful recycling, if you will, of belongings. And I used to give free art lessons while I was traveling the U.S. I called it Art in Park. My favorite time was when I was in Florida, and I stayed at a campsite for 2 weeks, and I would just give free art lessons there, and I got to go kayaking for free because of that, right? It was just I did something for you, and they're like, hey, I have this thing, I have no expectations of anything, right?
Yeah, there's not a lot of people that can live like that because they need a sense of security.
Yeah.
That they know how much they're gonna get next week. But, I mean,
it's made me lose my mind a couple times. It's stressful. It's really stressful. But I had to start believing in my ability to manifest. Once I started doing that, things became a lot less stressful. But to do nomadic life, you really have to take massive action, right? You have to dedicate yourself to it, and you have to find strategies. And if you don't, you could easily fail, you know, aka go to a women's shelter. Or at least that was my situation. You know, I felt like, oh man, I failed. I just can't do it. But now I have like storage units. I can put all my stuff in there, and now I can sleep in the back of my truck again. But you know, it's stuff like that being able to afford.
It must be hard to get to the storage unit.
Oh,
No.
right now, yeah, for sure. But it's in California where I was like I settled down for a couple months because I needed to be there, and I knew I needed to be there. But
Yeah.
I started some projects.
Well, tell me about the fires.
Oh, okay. So I was staying in the tent when a fire was coming closer. The smoke was getting heavier, and it was getting really hot. That's nerve-wracking. You could lose everything, you know. And during that time, like my brother got evacuated, and he was up near Portland, Oregon's fires, you know. Well, not there. There was fires. He got evacuated, and he's like got a baby, you know. And
Was it hard to breathe too?
yeah, I had to like wear my mask not for corona, but so I could like breathe. It was really stressful, and eventually I got a heat stroke from it, you know. So like not necessarily where I was camping, but just the whole area warmed up so hot, hotter than it should have been for the time of year it was. And the skies were just like smoky for, you know, 20, 30 miles away. That was just sad because you know that's affecting real people, you know, that's their property that's burning up, everything. And we don't have a system that makes it, it's like, if we just like allowed people to get into RVs that needed to escape some situation like this, there's RV lots full of empty RVs. They're mobile houses, okay? And we don't, we can't wrap our minds around like letting people use those. And for good reasons, you know, they could cause damage, maybe they get in an accident, maybe they're crazy and on drugs all the time, and you know, people feel so connected to their belongings, right?
Yeah.
But you know, if you aren't so connected and more focused on humanity first, the idea of that would just be like, oh, so
Well, find a way to solve the problem. I mean, there's no like solving the problems right now.
we do not have systems in place to get mass amount of people safely and secure. We have FEMA, but that has done it's not very efficient. I met a guy, his house, he was in Paradise, California, his house burned down. He went into a FEMA camp, and it felt like jail to him, you know, and it was very restricted, and there was a curfew and all this other stuff. And he was like, "No, my friend has this RV. I'm just gonna stay in it. I'm gonna work on cars for this person," and that's how he paid his rent, you know. Which that has been happening. A lot of people are taking in other individuals. So
Trading like services.
yeah. But if you don't set proper boundaries during that time, what ends up happening is maybe the expectations are different from each person.
Right.
You know, I'm in a vulnerable situation, thank you for helping me. You're now my slave. You know, not necessarily how they put it, but that has happened.
Right.
So it's just being cautious about unspoken contracts that people are like.
So, has there been any people we've ran into that are from official groups like MAGA, like QAnon? I'm gonna just name them off. Antifa,
So.
biker gangs. I don't know.
So Rich created this actual political group called the Hogwash Party. But like, is it truth or is it hogwash? Is kind of like the slogan,
Okay.
right?
Interesting.
And so because right now it's easier to sell fake news 6 to 1 to the truth. Like, you know, we got one truth and 6 fake news because that makes money, you know. So now we got to start questioning what is truth. But he is not necessarily yanking, you know.
Okay.
But he's like, I can't really wrap my hand. He's in defense of like Trump and some of the stuff he's done and the business side, and he's like, I think what he's doing is good, you know. And so I don't mind talking to people who are different viewpoints than me, but I wanted to help out at events with Rich, right? Because like networking and understanding. Well, then I like get to an event and I look around, I'm like, this is a Trump event. what am I doing here? Did I just accidentally infiltrate something that I didn't think I was going to? Right?
So you got surprised for a Trump event.
Yeah. But then I just realized, oh, that's just gonna happen, right? But what was interesting, I went to one and
Were they nice?
they were, they seemed like a little carnival, if you will. Like there was one guy, he's like, I don't know, bodybuilder or something, he's strong, he's probably famous in the Trump world, but I don't know who he is, right? And just like, it seemed like this show and tell of talent,
Okay.
but it doesn't necessarily mean, you know, they're helping move ideas forward. And then you got people flying their flags, you know, and then you got people selling merch and stuff, and I was like, man, this is interesting. If he's just like, it just seemed like it was a way to monetize himself. And then, since he's got money, he gets people to sign petitions for whatever he wants, and he pays these people, and now they get money, right? And so they've kind of got to be supportive of Trump, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then to get signatures, I think you could get like $20 for getting like 3 signatures for different petitions or something like that. I don't know.
Huh.
I don't exactly know how that works, but people make a lot of money.
Wow.
But if you are trying to do petitions for something that you can't afford to pay someone to get those petitions,
Yeah.
it's going to be a lot harder to pull that off, right? And so it's almost like, is that why we're getting some of these laws, is because people can afford to hire people to do it?
Yeah, if everybody had $1,000 a month, they could say, screw you in your petition. That doesn't make sense.
But the other thing that bothers me is, there was one time one guy's like, hey, you want to sign these things? And like 2 out of the 3 things I agreed with. And I was like, sure, I'll sign these things. He's like, well, I need all 3 signatures so I can get paid. I was like, so you're pushing an agenda so you can meet your basic needs that is not within the alignment of mine. I want you to get paid, but I don't believe in this, and I'm not gonna put my signature on something I don't believe in.
Yeah.
And like he kind of guilted me about it, and I was like, this is stupid, you
Yeah.
know. But also that's a messed up system,
Yeah.
you know.
That's a messed up sales tactic. You're like, you have to buy this or I'm gonna be in trouble. You know, it's like that's not the way to sell things.
No, and he didn't even want my signatures at that point. And I'm like, well, that one I don't want to do. He's like, he pretty much just stopped me.
Uh-huh.
It's like, it's a bit fucked up, you know. So that that kind of raised a red flag. But I don't know how to like. It should not be signature based, but that's why they are so pushy, you know, because you get money for this,
Right.
and they make a decent amount of money, you know. Pushing someone else's agenda. Now, is that agenda in alignment with your values? That's a good question. I don't know. But yeah, there's a lot of people doing that at each of these events. I had gone to, 3? So he actually had done what's that called? Oof, I don't know. But there was another event and I was like reading tarot cards at it, and it was a lot of fun. He doesn't like Governor Gavin Newsom. He wants to recall him, right? He's pushing very hard for it. And I was like, well, why? You know?
Well, when's he up for just another election?
Hmm.
People, yeah, the recall thing, you know, is strange to me because it's like, we wait for the next election for everything, but then you're trying to recall somebody, and it takes years to run for any office anyway, so it's like, why don't you just start campaigning for the office right now instead of campaigning to recall? I don't know. I don't understand how that works. If you're from California, tell me how that works. I don't know. So.
There are a lot of issues.
Well, California has lots of issues, and Joe Rogan went to Austin. I just saw Ben Shapiro do, of course, more conservative people, but Ben Shapiro just did a video saying why he's leaving California, and he grew up there, and so that's kind of a big deal for him to actually leave California, even though he's very Republican. But yeah, it seems like lots of people are taking cues from those guys and getting the hell out of Dodge.
Having people that we look up to making decisions for our own lives, it gives other people permission to do something similar.
Right.
Like if he can do it, I can do it. I actually try to live my life a lot like that. Like, the more I can be living my life authentically to what is me, I have a lot of controversy around my character. Or like, if you look at my personal life, there could be controversy there. But to me, it's not controversy. It's just who I am, right? And so, if it stirs up emotions in you, that's only a reflection upon you, not me. I'm just living authentically. Why? Maybe ask yourself why you're feeling this way.
Right.
Like maybe there's something in your psychology that needs to be addressed. Maybe someone who, or maybe you're indoctrinated to believe that what I'm doing is wrong. But like, is it something you actually want to do? But by living authentically and out loud, it gives other people permission to come to me and ask questions, or like, I want to come out about being non-monogamous or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, that's hard. It's hard to come out to your family about stuff like that, especially if they're a religious family, and so, but they're like asking me questions about it, and I can provide personal input, and people who've been sexually traumatized, I can help them through what I've gone through as well. And so it just gives people more permission to be open about what's really going on, because if you're vulnerable by exposing who you truly are, it gives them the opportunity to be as well.
So are you saying, what does that have to do with leaving California?
Okay.
You're talking about
No, so when I meet people along the way, I'm able to actually help heal some of their traumas as I meet them and talk to them, and or help give them tools. But because I'm open to them, they just helping as you go along. But if I become more known, okay, here we go. If I become more known, like how they have permission to leave California, other people have permission to be more authentic about themselves, and think of like Ellen, right? When she came out, it gave a lot more people permission to come out, but she's a figurehead, right?
Yeah.
And so I just want to be able to do something similar.
So are you going back to California?
I do eventually plan to go back to California, but not probably a long stint. And but like, I don't know.
I would think like you would do well trying like in some type of group that handles homelessness, or so either a nonprofit that tackles homelessness, or even like one of the mayors that is doing UBI in California, like getting involved with their campaign or their programs and things like that. But I mean, there's so many options. Yeah, I'm sure you're just going with the flow wherever you're needed.
So currently, I let myself go with the flow. I have determined that I'm going to be in Texas for 1.5 months, so I can spend a month to be with my friend and 2 weeks to work with somebody who is also part of one of my teams. I work with teams, plural, of people for different projects, and so after that, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I'm actually using this time to reevaluate and feel where the flow of energy is pulling me. So right now I'm actually looking for people to interview for a documentary series that I'm doing. And so like I met this gal in, where was I? Tucson, Arizona. And
That's where I'm from.
nice. But she was starting, she had a second house and she's starting a community center in the second house. And there's enough space that there's social distancing, but like she's got a little art stand area and, you know, places to do yoga, and she wants to actually like make it more of a thing. And I was like, girl, let me help you out. Also, can I interview you for my documentary? And so I actually get a chance to meet people who are doing something with their life and trying to make change, you know, within their community. And I can use that kind of stuff to put in my documentary so that more people could be inspired by actionable solutions. There are lots of people who have more than one home, you know, but they don't necessarily do anything with it. Maybe they Airbnb it, but there's no life happening within it,
Right.
you know. And so maybe that could be the thing. Because I met a woman while I was traveling at an Airbnb. I think I was in North Carolina, maybe. I always forget where I am sometimes, you know, I'm all over the U.S. But she had taken me in and we had a conversation, and she had taken in this other gal who was going to stay there for a full month, you know, but then she heard my stories and she's like, you know, I think I need to help more women like you know, and like it inspired her. So by like entering people's homes and their personal domains, there's actually, well, one, you've just shown this person you're welcomed there, you know, but two, like, you can really tell the health of a person by their home as well. So if their house is, you know, falling apart and smelly or lots of garbage and stuff, you know, you can tell a person's mental health that way. And so maybe you just like, do you need help, or, you know, do you want to talk about something? So I can actually understand what people are going through better, and cater maybe my message to them, for them. And I think that's a failing of therapy actually, and even medicine, because maybe the reason they're sick all the time is because there's so much moldy food, right? But if you go to a doctor's, they're not asking about your kitchen,
Your
you know.
health,
Yeah.
or your food health.
I met a guy who,
Nutrition.
he was a pest control guy, right?
Okay.
And so he would go into these houses and he's like, the main job is just cleaning up their mess, because that's why they're sick and that's why there's so many bugs, you know? And so like by entering their home and cleaning up all the garbage, they're able to take care of the problems. But the person who is hiring them doesn't connect the dots. The reason there's bugs is because I've left food out for bugs.
Yeah. Like spraying isn't gonna help. It's gonna make it worse, because now you have chemicals and food and bugs.
Yeah.
Bugs are there to help clean when you won't. You know.
So I get to see people's health at a more personal level, and I combine it with all the research that I've done, and I'm just like, okay, I know how I can help you. I had gone to my sister's in Colorado, and there was a lot of garbage outside of the apartment complex, not her place, she had just moved in. But there was so much garbage. And then there were so many grasshoppers, right? Why are there so many grasshoppers? Because they love garbage. That's where they thrive, right? And so they're reproducing. And I took a couple steps and just, I swear 100 jumped at once, you know? And that was gross. Okay. Yeah. But then think about.
But good protein, but go on.
Well. So then you have, like, there's a lot of stray cats, right? And maybe a stray cat might eat a couple crickets or whatever, or some grasshoppers, but then it's like eating top ramen every day, right? It's not nutritious. It's the same thing as bland. You're tired of that diet. So it makes the ecosystem out of whack when we have garbage, right? Clean up the garbage. Also, you know, if you have glass and sun is feeding through it, you might actually be starting a fire, and you have all the the makings of fire right there.
Oh, yeah.
So
Never thought
we
about
need
that.
to be very adamant about cleaning up garbage, all over it, which is like another reason why I'm so like cleaning up garbage. And how do we do that? You gotta have motivation. But when I would clean garbage, I had a guy come up to me and, hey, you want some help? Sure. And they're like a pilot and they're just killing time and like this was like, oh, this is a good talk and we're doing something for the environment. One time I was at a bar and like we had gone to go smoke outside, and as I'm there I'm looking at all the garbage and I just pick it up, right? And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, it's just no, I'm gonna pick it up. And so actually what ended up happening is we picked up garbage and we went on a walk, and it was just like this cool hangout after like doing that. And
Let that be a lesson to you, everyone. Whenever you have an opportunity, go ahead and pick up the garbage and take care of it.
also, if you just
Good
want to
thing to
meet
do.
people, it's a good way, honestly. But you also get to see the health of that community. Okay, think about it. If you're constantly seeing Red Bulls or needles, you can see what is toxic in that area. And if you have a whole city that's full of garbage, why? Ask why, okay? That means their mental health, because like the less mental bandwidth you have, the less likely you're gonna take care of that like thing, like throwing away garbage, right? And then you're like, well, I'll deal with it later. Then you put something else there, I'll deal with it later, because your mind is so focused on whatever you're spending your mental bandwidth on. And so now you have a whole pile of garbage, and you definitely don't have the energy to pick that up and take care of it, you know. But when you have someone else come in, and maybe it's into your own personal house, people get uncomfortable and actually start cleaning up their own houses because they're embarrassed by their mess, right? So actually just cause someone to activate. And
Yeah, that's the only time I clean is when I'm gonna have house guests. I'm motivated.
But think about that. By helping another person, you've just triggered yourself to help yourself. And now you have someone who needed maybe your spare bedroom. They get their needs met. You've also just taken care of some of that mental bandwidth, and then you feel better about yourself. You know, or they just keep making excuses, or like not excuses, but they say sorry. And I'm like, I've injected myself on your life. Like, I accept you as you are. There are no judgments, you know.
Okay.
Unless I have like an allergy attack, and then I'm like, well, I gotta go get some Benadryl, you know, because some people have those problems. But again, I get to be in that environment that, especially with technology, people are isolating themselves, especially engineers, computer, like, you know, programmers and stuff. Agoraphobia is becoming a thing, like not wanting to go outside because like the world is pretty shitty and they're just afraid of the world now. You know, there's protesters, blah, 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 you know. So I met a few people with fear for really going outside, you know. And when you go into their environment, though, you can see how they're doing. Yeah. So I think that's more. ramble.
So the plan now is to be in California and
Texas.
sorry, where are we again? Texas.
I'm pretty sure we're in Texas.
To be in Texas for like a month or two, and then see how it goes. See where the next place is. So you may come back to Dallas, and I can introduce you to the rest of the gang. So
That would be fun. I mean, I have no problems with this, and because I'm only going to be like 2 hours away for a while anyway.
yeah.
But yeah, after that, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And that stresses other people out, actually. Sometimes they're like, why aren't you so prepared? And they're like nervous for me.
They're like, calm down, it's my life.
So
I'm okay, you should be okay.
Right. There's a lot of people like, you should settle down. I'm like, thank you for your opinion.
Yeah.
I will consider it.
That's it always gets me when people are giving you advice and you're like, oh really, are you financing that? And they're like, well, I'm not going that far. You know, it's like, okay then.
I've essentially had to, you know, I'll take their suggestion and I'll look at it and I'll play with it and like, maybe they're right. Maybe, you know, like giving up 10 life, like that was a hard decision for me. But it was like, this is a decision I think I need to make for myself, you know, and I'm okay with that. But like, it's really just, it's funny how much other people care. It's beautiful that they do, but like, people get protective over me and they hear about these terrible things that do happen, and you know, to them they're like, you could have prevented this. Could have I really? Like, do I know when something bad's gonna happen to me? And most generally we don't, right? Yeah. It happens and then you deal with it, right?
Like, you had your trailer stolen. And so tell me about that experience. You just showed up and it was gone, or you felt like something in your gut that was going to happen, or?
So I had detached it from my truck, and it's just a smaller trailer, you know, it's a supply trailer. And I had, because I wanted to save on gas, because it was affecting that, and it's also just hard to park. So I had moved it, but I had put it in a spot, and I was like, this is not a good spot. But it was on their property, but saying it's gone.
And you didn't have a lock for it or anything like that? Or did it matter?
I had a lock on it, like, yeah, but because it was just there, they were able to take it. You know, and it was a little treasure chest of stuff that they scored, and it kind of sent me in a small spiral, emotionally.
Yeah.
But I was able to like pull myself out of it. And, you know, I got a lot of sympathy and empathy from other people, like, oh, I'm so sorry this happened. And I'm like, it's okay. Most of the stuff that was in that trailer wasn't like I needed it. But, you know, there's personal things like, you know, all my childhood photos and my great-great-great-great-grandfather's World War I chest, you know, like, things that are sentimental.
So you're keeping that by you to keep an eye on it, basically. The photos and things, really personal stuff.
Things that, you know, I wanted to have with me. Things that made me feel like this is my home. I'm able to, I'm able to have my things that bring up my emotional health, you know. And or tools that I can share with other people. You know, I had a tool chest, and sometimes I would go somewhere and someone's like, oh man, I need to do this thing. I was like, I got you. You know, I was like, I had Hermione's bag, okay, if you will, from Harry Potter, or Mary Poppins purse, whatever you want to say. But like, that's my truck, right? I just had absolutely everything. And like, I could just have a random like party because I had all the decorations in my truck, and people were like, oh, you had this, you're prepared for this. And it was just a very interesting, it's fun to just like, oh, I got you.
Yeah.
And so it's like this little mobile, like, what do you call it?
Tool bag.
Yeah. But I also learned how to be kind of a handyman from like my mom. My mom was like badass, you know. So she was able to like, you know, fix up her house, and she would do all this stuff because she never really had like a stable partner, man figure. But she's like, that's okay, I got this, because like she kind of became a tomboy from my grandpa, who my grandpa would go to other countries and help build churches and schools and stuff. And people in other countries would know him, like, you know, he's, and I can name drop him a few times, you know, like John Borman, what's his name? Name drop him, no. But they actually have, my grandpa and grandma are one of my biggest inspirations, and they do a lot of community service. They've given me crowned like king and queen of community service of their little town, you know. It's cute. But they would like get food from grocery stores and donate them to people who don't have enough to eat, you know. They work at a thrift store, and that's where they have these food boxes and stuff like that. And so I'm like, if my grandpa can do this stuff, I can do this stuff, you know. He's definitely influenced a lot of the behavior I have. Yeah. I don't know why I went on that tangent.
So you have a family history of helping out. So that's probably where it comes from, deep down inside.
Oh yeah, we would go to church camp all the time, and then like they would work in the kitchen, you know, and sometimes I would help in the kitchen too. And so like I got to see the volunteer side of all these different things that help others, you know. and that really added a lot of value to my life, and it's encoded in my brain.
Well, I think we're gonna wrap it up.
Cool.
It seems like we had a pretty good talk.
That was
Covered
nice.
a lot of stuff, and we did. There's no real questions, right?
Yeah, we just had Ariel here, so hello.
We need more people on here to ask questions. So share this, put your comment in the below, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and get on the next time that we have an awesome guest like Faye here traveling across the country to be on my show.
Yeah, that's the only reason I'm here.
Okay, thanks everyone. Talk to you
Bye.
later.